Tomorrow, lots of attention will be on a court in New York where jury selection for former President Donald Trump's criminal trial is scheduled to begin. The trial will mark the first time in history that a U.S. president is criminally prosecuted. The judge has characterized the case as election interference related to hush money payments made to adult film star Stormy Daniels. Now, many consider this to be a less impactful case compared to the Mar-a-Lago documents matter and the January 6th case, both of which are yet to be scheduled for trial. Richard Gordon is a lawyer, a veteran political consultant at all levels of government. He joins me this morning to talk about all of that and more. Richard, good to see you again.
Good morning, Paul.
So I don't want to have a legal discussion with you about it, but my question when I think of the trial starting tomorrow for the former president, does it really matter what happens? He really has mastered the art of spin, so does it matter?
Well, it matters in a lot of ways. First of all, it is stunning that we're even here, right? It is stunning that a former president of the United States has been brought up on criminal charges like that. So, first time in history, stunning. Doesn't matter. Do we believe in polls anymore? The polls have shown that a lot of Republicans will not vote for a convicted felon. Will that be true or not? I'm betting it's not. I'm betting that it doesn't matter in the regard you're saying. Obviously, it matters in the sense of our society and justice and those type of issues. But as far as will it affect the election, I think marginally. However, this election is going to be on the margins. And if Trump loses a few percentage points in important states, Pennsylvania, let's say, Georgia, let's say, it could make a difference. It could make a difference.
Of course, no cameras in the courtroom and all that, so one of the differences is we'll get his daily spin on what happens. We won't get anything from the prosecution.
Well, and you also realize that he is running a campaign through the courthouse, which is fascinating in and of itself. It goes to his narrative. His narrative is, I'm like you. I'm oppressed. People are down on me. The big man is beating up on me. I'm just like you. And these court cases give him that argument and give him that opportunity to say that.
So much to talk about. Let's talk about abortion for a little bit because that reared its head in a big way this past week with Arizona affirming an 1864 law before it was even a state, which basically recognizes only the exception for the life of the mother. What's interesting about that is the president also spoke to in fact, just before that decision, the president said, I have decided the state should make a decision and it's the people speaking. Will he pay a price for that? I mean, it is the people speaking, except when judges make a decision. In this case, nobody elected them.
That's correct. Look, let's call this what this is. Donald Trump put 3 Supreme Court nominees on the court. They have opened this door through Dobbs. They have moved this through the states. So for them to come out and say that, wow, they went too far, Donald Trump started this. Donald Trump made this happen. And 27 states in this country have restrictions on abortion. And we are moving towards more and more states doing that. I think 14 states, it's a 15-week limit. We have moved massively from Roe v. Wade. This is Donald Trump. And what's fascinating to me on this is how many people, Kari Lake's a great example in Arizona, have moved from a position of with the Arizona
Well, she actually
Supreme
supported
Court,
the 1864 law before she didn't. Yeah.
Before she didn't, and why didn't she? She didn't because Donald Trump moved on this issue. So when Trump moved on it, and Trump, everyone in New York knows he's pro-choice. I mean, he's been pro-choice his whole life, and suddenly he changes when he gets elected president because it's expedient. But someone like Kari Lake has moved on this issue. A lot of Republicans have moved on this issue only to align with him. That's fascinating in and of itself.
Will continue to unfold. I wanted to ask you about Gaza.
Sure.
Obviously, that goes on, a lot of pressure on President Biden. He's not the prime minister of Israel or the president of Israel. But at the same time, we're concerned about Iran getting involved. What advice do you have for the president on how you handle this quagmire?
Well, look, if he...
politically.
Of course. I think he overstepped. I agree with what he said initially. In support of Israel. But the Palestinian people deserve our support also, and they deserve our respect. The people do. Hamas does not. And you have to draw a very strong line between the two of them. And look, 1,200 people were slaughtered by Hamas. 253 people were kidnapped. 105 have been released. We don't know where 140 people are. Hamas could end this tomorrow. And that's what I think the president is trying to do. Put the pressure on Hamas to let those people go in return for a ceasefire. That is a perfectly good and rational thing to do.
Should the president's main concern be his appearance, his impressions here at home, or should it be about the Middle East per se if those things come into conflict?
Well, I would clearly say what's going on in the Middle East is more important. And I actually think that's what Joe Biden thinks. I actually think Joe Biden thinks finding a solution to this problem is more important to him. However, I do think there's a middle ground here, and I think he can move on it. My concern for him is whether the boat has sailed. Young people, Palestinians, Arabs, obviously, blacks.
And well, by the way, and this summer the DNC is here in Chicago.
Absolutely.
If there is no resolution in the Middle East, I imagine we can anticipate lots of protests near the site. How does that disrupt the DNC proceedings?
Well, it will completely disrupt the DNC proceedings. I mean, I have been at every convention for many, many years, and I have been locked out of many conventions because of protests. I would expect this summer, and this is an ongoing story we'll talk about for weeks to come, I expect there to be tremendous protests at this convention. But it goes bigger than what goes on in the hall. It goes to a sense of out of touch, out of control Democratic Party, and this should be a simple moment for Joe Biden, a wonderful moment for Joe Biden. And I think what goes on outside is going to have a bad reflection on the Democratic Party.
Polls overall generally show Trump ahead within the margin of error, but they do. And so I'm sort of curious, do you have is this election in November, you're an expert in this, is it a referendum on Joe Biden's first term, or is it somehow a referendum on a former president's future potential term?
Well, I would also say it's a referendum on that the former president's former term as well. I don't think the former president has said anything about his next term that's positive, that it shows a direction for America. I don't think any Americans could vote saying, if Donald Trump is elected, he is going to do this positive thing. We know the retribution he said he's going to do, but clearly this is a referendum on Joe Biden. This is a referendum not on his accomplishments. I mean, the man has, in his first 2 years in office, accomplished a ton of things. The Recovery Act is amazing. The CHIPS Act is amazing. But it's a referendum on his age. It's a referendum on, does he have the capability to do it? Which is unfair.
And we'll see whether or not the Democrats can sell the accomplishments he has had. Right now they're not polling. We'll see where the economy is.
All within the first 2 years, interestingly. And then the Republicans said, we're not going to give him anything else.
All right, Richard Gordon, thanks for spending part of your Sunday with us. I appreciate that. Still to come on WGN-TV Political Report, mourning the loss of Cook County Clerk Karen Yarborough as the trailblazing lawmaker is laid to rest. Party officials make plans for her successor. Stick with us.